We're rocking. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Ages of Film. I'm Clayton. Today we're reviewing King Kong from 1933. An OG, baby. Let's go. Let's talk about it. So, what do I like and what do I dislike with King Kong? I'm glad you asked. Before we get into this review, though, while you're here, do yourself a favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new. Join the pack. We ball, all right? We go hard in the paint, and we have a good time. So, yeah, help out the channel. Show me some love, and yeah, let's start talking about Kong. This was not the first King Kong movie I saw. The first Kong film that I was introduced to as a kid was the 1976 version with Jeff Bridges and what was her name? The lady that plays Anne. Oh man, I know her name. Jessica Lange. That's it. You thought I was gonna forget. Jessica Lange. Yeah, so Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange. That was the first King Kong movie I remember seeing as a kid. So I think had I seen 33 Kong first, I may have some more, a stronger degree of nostalgia with this film. But I don't, because I didn't see Kong 33 until I was an adult. So I have seen it multiple times, but I didn't see it first until I was an adult. So I don't have that kind of nostalgia love for this film. That being said, I do still like it. There are still plenty of positives for me in this film. One of which is the spectacle. I love seeing the ambition of the filmmakers in this movie. I mean, they go for it, dude. Like they do not pull their punches. They go all the way. And I love seeing all the ways that they try to innovate, that they try to create things. I mean, the production designs here all look really good for 1933. You know, they really create some really spectacular production design scenes where there's, they fill the frame in with a lot of people, a lot of kind of your filler type of cast, people that are there to create large scale sequences, a lot of costume designing going on. I'm thinking primarily when they get to Skull Island and you see all the natives there and they're doing their ritual, and there's a lot of people in the frame. And for 1933, again, movies weren't doing this. In 1933, movies weren't doing this. This was a really ambitious film, and I love seeing it when I do watch this film. It always impresses me how they were able to pull this off in 1933. But yeah, just the spectacle, the grandeur of the film, the production design, the costume designs, the large scale type of cinematography, the makeup, all that stuff that they're doing on a spectacle level is really impressive. And I watched this movie and I'm thoroughly impressed. And I just love seeing how they do it. I love watching it take place. And I just think to myself, man, these people were, I don't even know that they were fully aware at that time of what the kind of impact that they were making on film and the kind of dent that they were making on spectacle and on what you could do in film and the scale that you could pull off. And they do it. They go for it. And to me, that's a strong positive with this movie. Also, the stop motion animation in the film is, this was long before the day of CGI, computer effects, stuff like that. So They relied heavily on stop motion animation, to pull off the Kong sequences and the dinosaur sequences. They also used a technique called rear projection. If you've been through film school, you're probably familiar with it. But basically, what they would do is they would shoot the live action actors first and shoot their scenes, and then they would project behind them the stop animation of Kong or the dinosaurs or whatever. So it was just it was a very effective way at that time to pull off really cool visual effects that still gave a sense of realism to the film when you're watching it. And it looks really good, man. I mean, watching this movie back for this review, I was just, again, really impressed with what they were able to pull off in 1933. Dude, there are movies in the 21st century that use visual effects to a much weaker degree than what King Kong did in 1933. I won't mention any names, Scorpion King. But yeah, there are some movies out there that have just piss poor, visual effects, and you're like, dude, why? You have no excuse. This is the 21st century, Buck Rogers. The fact that you can't make your visual effects look better than the visual effects work of a movie from 1933, shame on you and your mother. All right. So yeah, stop motion animation, big positive for me. Love what they did and how they pulled that off. The pacing and the structure, also a positive. Just this is a very tightly edited and structured film. There's not really any filler in here. There's nothing that drags out longer than it should. It moves along pretty fast, man. It moves from beat to beat at a pretty fluid pace, and I think that pacing keeps you in the film. It entertains you because it doesn't allow you to get disconnected from the adventure, from the story, from what's going on, because of how it's paced and how it's structured. It moves along very fluidly at a really good rate and pacing. So I that's something that I do enjoy with the film. I am entertained with it because it handles pacing and structure really well. The kills, really good for 1933, dude. I gotta say, I mean, I'm a big fan. Well, I shouldn't say like a big fan, but I am a fan of like the classic Universal monster movies, your Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman. 99% of those movies, which a large portion of them came out in the same decade that King Kong came out, don't have near the level of kills, the impact of kills that this one has. I mean, we have a scene where they're on Skull Island and Kong is trying to throw them off that giant log, and you literally see bodies crashing and splatting on the ground, like they're just bouncing on the ground. You're like, dude, for 1933, they were going hard, son. Like, they were snapping necks and cashing those checks, homie. Big time on the kills. There's the scene where Kong kills the T-Rex. You see the blood from the T-Rex jaw there. You see scenes where Kong is literally eating people, scenes with he has a person in his mouth and he's chewing them up and stuff. Like, they were doing a lot of things that, quite frankly, they would get canceled for today because of PC-ness, I should say, to put it gently. But yeah, so for 1933, they were doing some stuff, man. They were grinding out there, and I loved it. I had forgotten about how effective the kills were in this film and how innovative they were for 1933. watched it back for this review, and I was like, wow, they really did go hard, man. I mean, some of those kills are pretty gnarly for 1933. So they definitely get a positive for me in the kill department. I like that we have a coherent premise and story, a premise that is you can logically follow from start to finish, makes sense. You're not left, asking questions of coherency or logic. It's a premise that on paper makes sense. You have this filmmaker, this greedy filmmaker, who wants to make this big grand movie. He has a questionable reputation. He takes his cast out to this island that he knows could endanger them, just to create this grand movie. Comes back with this big time treasure, and spoils, and it ends up destroying not only his reputation but also a lot of innocent people. So just the premise, the idea, the concept, the story here is coherent. I can follow it from beginning to end coherently and logically, and that's something that I enjoy with any movie. I'm not having to try to fill in logic gaps along the way. I like when I can watch a film and there's a clear, coherent premise and story all the way through, and I get that with Kong 33. And it has a clear, consistent theme about the destructive nature of possession. Kong is this symbol of destruction. He possesses this island all to himself. He's the god. He's the king of this island. Everything in it is his. And then he gets taken out of his environment, out of his element, to a completely foreign land and foreign atmosphere and place that he's completely, new to. And it's, all after this girl, his bride that he possesses. He wants to control her. He wants to possess her like he possessed everything else on the island. And it destroys him. Same thing with Carl Denham in the film. He also is another character that we see that theme developed all the way through. He possesses this career in filmmaking. He's had some wealth, he's had some success, but he pursues what he wants to possess, this huge grand film and money and fame and all these other things. He captures Kong, brings him back to New York. He thinks he possesses Kong now. He thinks he controls Kong. He's even, chained him down. And yet Kong breaks free. And ultimately, Carl's reputation and his career is basically lost at this point. No, they don't say it, but the film logically implies it, and it's what logically follows for Carl Denham. So that greed and desire for possession ultimately destroys him as well. So there's a clear, coherent theme throughout the film. I appreciate in it as well. Moving on to the negatives. There are a few negatives here. One of them being the characters I'm not overly fond with. There really aren't any characters that cut it for me. The forced romance between Anne and Jack, I didn't buy their relationship. I don't think they had the best chemistry on screen. The romance felt to me very forced. We get like one scene of them where he's kind of picking on her. He doesn't like the fact that a girl is on the boat. And then like the next scene with them, he's already expressing his love for her. And it's like, how did this romance and these feelings come to be exactly 2 minutes ago? You hated the fact that a girl was on the boat, and now you're, well, I guess I'm in love with you, Anne. Yeah, to some people, they buy it. They're in for it. For me, it doesn't really work. The supporting cast and characters here, they don't really offer me anything structurally or in the performances that leave any type of impact on me. And I just feel like, I just didn't really connect with any of the characters in this film. And also Carl Denham in the film. I wasn't really a fan of this iteration of Carl Denham. Not so much due to structural problems with the character. So in film, whenever you don't connect to a character, it could be related, it could be caused by primarily one of two issues. One of them is either going to be structural issues, how the character is written on script. Maybe they're not very developed. They're not used very well. They don't really serve much of a purpose. There are structural inconsistencies with the character. And because of that, you feel disconnected from them. That's one reason a character may not work for you in a film. The other reason is due to the performance by the actor playing that character. Where if you had another actor playing that same character, it might really resonate and really work for you. An example of this would be with Star Trek, Captain Kirk, right? So William Shatner plays Captain Kirk in the original Star Trek movies. And I personally don't really care for Captain Kirk in that original Star Trek line of movies. Whatever William Shatner is doing, it doesn't translate well to me. I don't really connect. I don't really care about that character. Not because of structural problems. Structurally, he serves a purpose. He's well developed. Like, that's all there. It's the performance by Shatner that doesn't move me in any way. It doesn't resonate with me in any way. There's not an energy transfer from the actor to me as the viewer. But you take that same character, Captain Kirk, and you put a new actor in there, Chris Pine, who played Captain Kirk in the new Star Trek movies. Love him. Can of corn. He's the best, right? So that's a perfect example of you can take a character who structurally serves a purpose, is well written on a structural level, but one actor plays that character and the character falls flat for you, just doesn't resonate, doesn't connect. But you put a different actor in that role and there's a total flip and a total change. That happens for me with Captain Kirk in Star Trek, and it happens also with King Kong with Carl Denham. This particular iteration of Carl Denham doesn't work for me, and it's due to the performance by the actor Robert Armstrong playing Carl Denham. The reason I'm not a fan of this iteration is because, and this was largely part of the time as well, it is what Robert Armstrong is doing, but that style of acting that he's doing was kind of the norm during this period. And it's the very kind of theatrical, over the top type of performance where the characters talk like this and we got to go get Kong. He ain't the one there in the world. You know, it's just the very animated, lively, elevated type of performance that feels very kind of fake and inauthentic, right? It feels too much like an act. Again, that's how they did it in that time. So, I get that he was doing what a lot of the actors in his time were doing, but it feels dated. It's a very dated style of acting that doesn't translate and doesn't hold up well to 21st century audiences, in my opinion. But you take that same character and you put him in the hands of Jack Black in the Peter Jackson version of King Kong, and it really works because of Jack Black's performance of that character. It's more modern. The style of acting that Jack Black is doing fits more with modern audiences. He brings more energy to that character, in my opinion. He feels more grounded and authentic. So for me, the reason that Carl Denham doesn't work for me in this film, it's not due to structural issues, but due to the over-the-top, dated type of acting performance by Robert Armstrong. But unfortunately, it does create a disconnect for me with the characters in the film. So that's one big issue I have. Also, Anne's relationship with Kong doesn't work for me. Now, it's an intentional decision. This film is a horror film. that it is trying to be a monster film. This is a horror film of the 1930s. So because of that, they made intentional choices with the relationship of Kong and Anne, that, they were basically trying to uh, make Kong this big giant monster, terrifying beast, right? That's kind of the purpose that he's serving in this film. He's this big, scary, giant monster, and I get it, right? So the way that Anne reacts to Kong makes perfect sense. Big, giant monster ape that's killing people. He's loud, he's big, he's powerful, terrifying. That is sort of a natural reaction, screaming your lungs off every time he's around you. But because of that relationship, it doesn't, what it does negatively is it creates a disconnection, for me, between those characters and their relationship. It lacks any type of emotional impact on me because of how they use that relationship between Kong and Anne. Where in the Peter Jackson version, they make Kong more, a much more symbol of a spiritual type of reality there, where he symbolizes something powerful and something deep and spiritual there. So the relationship with Anne is different. Anne recognizes that in him, that he's actually more of a protector. He's this sentinel and this protector and very powerful a force, but benevolent in that version. Here, he's not that. He's just this big giant killer, and that's obsessed with Anne, but it's due to possession and him wanting to possess her for his own. So the intentional, and again, it is intentional. So I get that, but because of the route that they chose to go between Anne and Kong, it doesn't really carry an emotional impact when Kong dies. I don't really feel bad for Kong. I don't really feel bad for Anne, because neither of them have made me care about their relationship or them specifically as characters. So that's another issue for me with the film. Not, again, it's not a structural issue. It was an intentional decision, but that decision negatively affects my viewing experience and relationship to the film. And then I do feel like the theme was a bit over the, kind of beat you over the head. The theme of, they say it multiple times. It was beauty killed the beast. And, Carl Denham says that like 4 or 5 times in this movie. And the Peter Jackson one, I know I keep bringing up the Peter Jackson version, but it's a remake. It's essentially the same film, just in different hands and a different iteration. But in the Peter Jackson version, they only say it once. Carl Denham only says it at the end of the movie when Kong dies, that it was beauty killed the beast. And in this film, that's less than 2 hours, they say it multiple times throughout the film. So it's like they're beating you over the head with the theme of the film. And for me personally, I prefer movies that are a little bit more subtle, where it leaves you actually having to think about the theme and kind of discover it on your own versus just like beating you over the head with it. And I kind of felt that a little bit watching it back for this review. So that's it. There's not like a lot of issues I have with the film, but the few issues I do have are pretty weighty in their significance. So my overall rating for King Kong 1933, I'm going to give this a 3.5 star review. Some movies have a lot of issues that cumulatively kind of weigh it down. Other films, you could have less severe, or you could have less quantitative issues, but they're more weighty and heavier in the impact that they have. And that's kind of the case here with Kong as to why it drops to a 3.5. Even though I have a lot more positives than negatives, the few negatives I do have are heavier and they're more significant because of how they affect my viewing experience. Characters at the end of the day are the most important thing for me in a film. So when you have a movie that unfortunately doesn't really offer any characters that connect for you as the viewer, you're left just kind of appreciating everything else with the film, but the characters are the ones telling the story. So not that many issues with Kong, but heavier in weight. So there you go, guys. Those are my thoughts on King Kong 1933. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, you freaks, kick it and rock on.